DigiMarCon Atlanta. I have a very special guest today to talk about AI. Now, before I introduce our special guest, I want to talk a little bit about the company, which is CSS. You can find them online, but they're transitioning now over to NetWatch AI, which is the name of their new program. And I've heard just a tiny bit about it, coming from an IT background, coming from a tech background, and I am already basically in love with your product, I have to say. So I think our listeners are going to really love um, what you have to share with us.
Thank you.
And without further ado, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Yes, sir. Well, my name is Michael. Come from DC, originally from Kenya, but I've been in the US for close to 20 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's an exciting journey being with NetWatch and doing all the AI and being the forefront of technology. So thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely. Now, with NetWatch AI, what was the original idea that inspired the concept to come about, creating an AI that can actually deal with technical problems on a mass level? It's a genius idea.
Thank you. I guess coming from monitoring space, server monitoring, data center monitoring, with over a decade experience in kind of infrastructure understanding, there wasn't any way that you could correlate an issue to a problem natively. You literally had to use a tool, or you had to understand deeper knowledge, or you had to be a tier three technician, for example, to solve very specific problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we needed a way that we can simplify all these things and really demystify how people think of technology. Where a tier one guy, just regular help desk, can be able to understand complex issues within their network and really solve those problems. Really, that's where we're going. And shortage of people and COVID coming up and people working from home. There wasn't really a better way to scale how people understand issues and all these data sets. And that's really where we came from.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, to many people, AI is still a little bit scary, a
Yes,
little bit
it is.
new. Do you want to go over the different types of AI and why it's more important to have like a more personalized or even work within a section of a personalized or
Right.
even self-created AI rather than a mass-produced open source AI and some of the problems with open source AIs?
That's true, and that's a very good point. And I always try to avoid the word AI as much as possible because it's such a big buzzword that everybody gets scared of. And I really try as much as possible to stay simple because a lot of the times you say AI, people say it's like, I'm not going to listen to that guy
Right,
because
right.
it's just another buzzword that he wants attention or the company needs attention. But for us, our approach to AI is really to, because everybody knows ChatGPT, everybody knows OpenAI, but we build our own LLM from our own data center. The point is two things: security and also basically to avoid AI hallucination. So what AI hallucination is basically just give you some verbiage that doesn't really make sense. I mean, it'll give you an answer eventually if you try to be very specific, but our approach is very centric where we have this data set that we point our model to, and the model really understands your data set from a contextual perspective depending on what you're trying to solve, right? In our case, it's IT problems or IT issues, and we're trying to solve all these issues, right? So we point it to a data set, and it can be anything. You can have any monitoring product. By monitoring product, I'm talking about NetWatch as an example,
Right,
or any I don't want to say specific vendors, but any vendor who has a monitoring solution. You point the model to that data set living in your own data center, and then it literally understands that data over a specific amount of time from a context of a sysadmin or a security guy, depending on really what you're trying to solve, and gives you that specific targeted answer without verbiage that you really don't even know what it means.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. See, as I also came from the IT background, so I love this concept.
Thank you.
Because in the past, there had to be a lot of tasks you have to do manually that are
Exactly.
rote and mundane, and now you can have it automated
100%.
based on your baseline, right?
Exactly.
So you teach it, if
Yes.
I'm understanding this correctly.
Yes.
This is the baseline. I want the system optimized in this way for this use.
Exactly.
And when it falls behind, it's able to basically identify, oh, here are the errors and the links in the chain. Let's fix
Exactly.
that so we're back up to optimization.
Exactly. That's exactly.
Genius.
Yeah, we're literally just connecting the dots. That's
Yeah.
all. Yes, where the problem or where the issues are, and what are supposed to be done. That's another concept that we have called healing actions within NetWatch. So what we'll do is, let's say, for example, hey, we have a baseline of this Windows system. It's supposed to be blah blah blah, ABCD. RAM is supposed to be this way. Your NVIDIA graphics card is supposed to be this way. So we understand those baselines based on the requirements, right? And then we monitor those baselines. Anything outside the baseline is going to be a problem, and you can have anything that's going to be doing the monitoring. You just point to the data set. So those are two different approaches,
Got
right?
it.
So you can have us look at the data set directly from the hardware, or have another device or any monitoring product look at, and we just point to the data set, and we give you what's outside the baseline. And if you want to do corrective or healing actions, go ahead. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's really good too, because some
Yeah.
AI will tell you what the problem is, but then it's up to you to fix it.
Yes.
It's like, okay,
What's happening?
great,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah,
Exactly.
You gotta go now and do all this stuff.
Right.
So I think
right.
that's really bridging the gap now between something that's arbitrary and making it practical.
Exactly.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. What is it like for you attending the conference? Like, how do you feel about going to these conferences? And are there any things you'd like to point out for people in terms of the importance of having this sort of like face-to-face, one-to-one connection where people can go to you personally and say, "Hey, I have questions with this specific use that might work for your,
Yes.
your application. Is this software going to work for me?" Things like that.
I'm really excited about these conferences. Number one is because you get real feedback from real people.
Right.
You get somebody coming to you and telling you, "Hey, I run a studio. I have this kind of problems. Hey, I have a data center that has this kind of problems. I have this kind of so." And coming from a monitoring background, we're really trying to set ourselves apart. Where we look, this is your problem. These are the solutions that you can have. And I had a similar experience with a different customer, and these are the solutions that I applied. So it's really encompassing. And one of the good things that we've even learned, and we've already built it into a product for ourselves, is the cloud aggregation tool that we built. It was built off because of the different talks that people have. People came to us, tell, look, I have GCP, I have AWS, I have Azure. I need to aggregate all my cloud visibility and have projections, have budgets, have now with all these things, have AI into it. Because really, our AI is just to simplify how you think. It doesn't really, it's not a magic thing, right?
Right.
It's really just, look, in the next month, you're going to have $20,000
Right.
in your cloud. Is that normal?
Right.
And then basically, so we build off that and then really try to make sense out of the data that you already have. So it's great meeting real people, getting real feedback from what you've made. Because 100%, I mean, we can't have a product without that solves people's issues without understanding the issues from the people themselves.
Right.
And I think that's really key. Even as a CIO, being here, it's important.
Right.
I just don't want to sit behind my desk and look at numbers. I want to understand how does the world work? Does it make sense?
Right.
Just really follow through with our promise on all the product that we say we're going to put out.
And that's one of the things I really like about this. It's maybe different from like a chat GPT model, right?
Yes.
Because if a bunch of people get together and write bad information, bad articles about someone because they don't like them, the AI will ingest all of that and just assume, oh, this is the truth. It doesn't know.
Exactly.
The same way with this, if someone just uses some open source tool, it's just going by the general, all the stuff is out there.
Right.
But let's say the default way people are doing things was wrong. Like the default OS configuration is just not correct. Which happens in many cases
a lot
with
of time.
Yes, I'm looking at you, Microsoft, and like these update rollouts. It's like, wait, you just de-optimized everything I did.
Exactly.
So what I really like about this approach is it's targeted, it's specific, and
very
just like going to a conference, we have a one-on-one connection, one-on-one contact with someone. You can get real solutions that are practical and not just here's a general spit of information that may or may not apply to you.
Exactly.
And now let's see. Oh, it doesn't work on your hardware. Oh, well, big surprise because you don't have the norm.
Exactly.
So I think this is actually a genius approach.
Thank you.
To it.
Thank you. And really, it's really, I don't want to say chat GPT, but it's really access to your data with the processing of AI. Right. So we don't want to say that we come and make this stuff up for you. It's the data that you already had. We literally just correlate or point to all these different points of the data and really understand from a contextual view what's very specific to you, not just from an arbitrary. That's why we avoid things like AI hallucination. We avoid because then it's very, very centric and and you can train your model based on a security, from a security context. You can train it based on sysadmin context, from engineers context. So when you ask the AI these questions, it's very specific to the kind of person who you are. Right. I see you asking the chat a question. They're not going to expect some very particular, technical answers. They just want 50,000 foot view of what everything's happening. That's our approach in understanding your own data. Right now, there's data everywhere. Literally, you get data, terabytes in AWS, terabytes in Azure. How do you really understand what all this means? That's really what we're trying to solve.
I think it's great. Yeah, and I know in the past sometimes I have without those specific rule definitions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like even if you ask ChatGPT, like, "Oh, I need help," let's say with a technical issue, it can help
Yeah.
you to some extent,
Right.
but then it starts breaking down at
Yeah.
a certain level. It doesn't know you have this hardware
Yeah.
with these needs, with these updates that
Yeah.
just came out, and that's
Right.
why this thing broke. And then even sometimes the forms are delayed or you can't even
Right.
find it there. So
Right.
this is great because it'll analyze in real time and
Exactly.
be like, "Oh, what's going on with these processes?"
Yes.
It's like, okay, all right, let's
Exactly.
take a look at that. I think that's great.
Thank you.
So yeah, the rule definitions
Yeah.
and integration with the cloud data. So my understanding is this works from server side, and you can bridge different OSs as well, right?
Correct.
You can have it look at like whether you're Mac based or Windows based or
Anything.
Linux based, anything, right?
Correct. Anything. Any
Genius.
endpoint. Yeah. I was gonna basically any endpoint, and not even just hardware endpoints. It can even be API. It can
Right.
be literally anything that has the ability to be read
Right.
and the data to come back, and then the data makes sense. We can do that. Now it can also be a product. So for example, Carbon Black, a good example. So they already have this product out there. Whatever they're doing, what they're doing, we can go to that data that they're looking at, and if they already made sense out of the data, perfect. Then we can also now help you just encompass all this data and correlate back to, hey, you had this other syslog server somewhere that had
Right.
this, and just put it all out together and give you that holistic picture.
Fantastic, because
Yeah.
you're even mentioning the business uses, like tying it
Yes.
into accounts and things like,
Exactly.
hey, why were we withdrawing all of a sudden this amount
Yeah,
on this day?
what
It's
happened?
like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of finding out in the back end after stacks of paperwork, you have an AI that immediately picks up on it.
Exactly. And I had a similar
Yeah.
experience with one customer. He's like, an intruder went into their account and
Right.
basically spun up a bunch of AWS accounts. What happened was they just saw a bill that's too high, but if you had NetWatch, you literally will have known that's 1 cent over what you normally spend. And I mean, you can set all these triggers in all these different cloud
Like
environments.
what's the
Exactly.
range?
What's
Yeah,
the range?
exactly, yeah.
But the whole point is that holistic view. And look, did DevOps get approval for that? No. All right. Well, then that's an anomaly.
Yeah.
And what do we need to fix it? Well, block the account or
Right.
send you an email or whatever
Right.
the case. It's just more of
Yeah.
really being interactive, and you could talk to your data
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
chat
In real time.
in real time.
That's
Exactly.
great.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, that's the other thing when you work with some of these open tools, it's not a real time
Interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
You can be going to a board meeting, right? And
Yeah.
you can be asking your data set, hey, when will my servers run out of drive space?
Right.
And it will give you right an answer in the next 6 months. When you go there, just open your phone. Hey, look,
Yeah.
in the next 6 months, we're not going to have any drive, so I need a budget.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
Yeah.
just one of those things that it helps you at ad hoc
Right.
figure things out as you go.
Very
So,
cool.
yep.
Well, thank you very much for that
Of
wonderful
course.
interview. Please pronounce your name again for all of our audience members.
Michael Kigumi.
Kigumi?
Kigumi, yes.
Kigumi. What
Exactly.
a cool name.
Thank you.
Is that, what is it, Italian or something?
No,
Like
it's well, my grandfather. That's my grandfather's name, so I have no idea where he got it from.
Okay,
But
okay.
look, I just go with it. It's from a tribe in Kenya called Kikuyu tribe. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's more of a exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool. And
Thank
does
you.
It have a particular like meaning or symbol behind it or anything?
To be honest, I think it does. I just need to find out what
okay,
it is.
yeah.
Most names usually do.
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't know exactly what that, but probably something great. Hopefully, right?
I'm sure. Well, this was a great discussion.
Thank you.
But thank you again so much for sharing. And,
Of course.
Our viewers at home, if you have a chance, go check out NetWatch AI. So
NetWatch
how can
AI.
they find more information about your company?
Literally just go there, fill up a form if you need to know more about who we are, what we do, and how we can help your business, either small or big business. The website, we have Mary, who's a great, whenever you go there, you're going to see her name and contact. Shoot her an email. You'll definitely get to hear from us.
All right.
Yep.
Fantastic.